Welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Recruiter. Today's guest is the exceptional Steve Tolen, a seasoned sales leader with over 20 years experience in sales leadership with a proven track record of establishing businesses from scratch and a reputation as an avid relationship builder.
My name is S1-EP4. Tolen and Co is the easiest thing to kind of come up with, and it's stuck, and many marketing people went, don't ever change that.
In this episode, Steve opens up about his mindset that has fueled his success to master lead generation, prospecting, and discovery calls.
Your clients, your potential candidates, everyone's got the same access to technology that you have. You know, the one thing that you own is yourself, everyone else is kind of taken.
We unpack his 5 before the call methodology, explore how to truly own your niche, and use AI without losing the human touch. This episode is packed with actionable strategies, memorable stories, and a healthy dose of straight talking wisdom from one of the industry's best. Welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Recruiter. Season 1, all about business development, lead generation, discovery calls, value propositions, pitches, anything to do with BD. And we're joined by Steve Tolen.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. Delighted to be here.
The man, the myth, the legend. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but for those who don't, do you want to give us a couple of minute background on what you've been up to? You've got a really interesting experience, and it'd be nice to get a bit of context before we jump into the sales aspect.
So firstly, thanks for having me. It means a lot. I really enjoy these. I'm delighted to to have the invitation. So I've been in sales, in recruitment for 20 plus years. My background, and everyone I think it's quite knows this, but I used to sell fish for 10 years, family business, before I got into recruitment. We were just talking a little bit earlier. That's how I ended up in the Southwest working for the high street agencies, and if I kind of bring you up to speed, I worked for 3 businesses in the UK very quickly. Went from consultant to national sales with Manpower, which was a global business, which is fantastic. Met my wife, and then in 2009 we ended up in Australia with 4 suitcases, and she was 5 months pregnant. Friday 30th of March 2009, what could go wrong? Came in day one, they closed the office. That was Brisbane. That was my entrance into Brisbane. I'd never been to Australia. 5 days later in Sydney with the suitcases and the pregnant fiance. And that was my entry point. And I think if you can kind of come through that, mate, it really set me up. Probably tells you a lot about myself. Tenacious. I always see the optimistic opportunity in everything. Believe if you, I always say calculated risks, and enjoyed that. I went through Randstad 8 years, progressed to the business, went through Allegis, set up the BD kind of division there for their MSP division. Also, always been in kind of strategic sales, and just enjoyed the kind of the BD. So never really been per se a recruiter, and I'm just known for more the solution, the insight kind of selling. I've really enjoyed that. Obviously moved into doing the private equity with recruitment entrepreneur, and then kind of built a business really around my personality and my experience, mate. So kind of what you see is what you get. My name is S1-EP4. Tolen and Co is the easiest thing to kind of come up with, and it's stuck, and many marketing people went, don't ever change that. So mate, everything to do with sales, people, the last kind of 12 months, people used to use it as a bit of a stick to beat me with. You haven't been in a branch for a long time. So I went in and did some work with Pinpoint, ran an IT business. While some things have changed, what hasn't changed is you only get out what you put in, right? Still matching great clients, great candidates, but definitely the market dynamics. And I do believe you have to work a lot harder to kind of fight for your airtime and your opportunity. So that kind of brings me to where I am today.
Love that.
So we're going to jump straight into the topics of the podcast. So lead generation and prospecting. What's been like the most effective strategy that you've consistently used or seen to generate high quality leads across your experience?
Doing the qualification is key. So, in terms of, I see people going quite generic and not owning their niche, not being a specialist. So really owning that. If you work in IT, what's the kind of the discipline, and then nurturing the kind of the candidates that you can kind of place alongside, the potential kind of organizations that they'd want to work. So I think really kind of fundamentals. Today I think everyone's looking for kind of shortcuts, and I do think certainly since COVID, business development skills and just general human connection really kind of waned. So I think people have lost that ability to do the grunt work, the outbound work, and actually say, okay, like anything in sales, you have to have something to take to market, and someone that wants to kind of buy. So being known as that expert in whatever niche it is, whether it's IT, I'm the guy for project managers or what have you.
Yeah.
and connecting with those people that you think would require those kind of services. So, mate, really, I don't think there's anything too kind of futuristic there or whatever. It's just really doing the kind of
just
the fundamentals.
Deep diving into a niche.
Yeah, exactly.
How's your approach changed or over the years? Because obviously you've been in recruitment a long time. Have you seen an evolution of your own skills?
Yeah. On a softer skill kind of level, I think you've learned to get more comfortable in your own skin. And as you have been in it 20 years, and particularly in Australia, getting on for 16 years, and I don't want this to sound cheesy, but you become more well-known and it opens doors and you put yourself out there. And that kind of encourages, it makes opening doors easier. Mm-hmm. So I think, and again, I mentioned this point before, I think you also have a responsibility, particularly when you develop a personal brand, to maintain high standards, and that's for the industry. So, recently, even though the last kind of 6 months, I feel very blessed and grateful. I've been invited on a lot of podcasts. Either there's not many people that are around, or people like what I got to say. But I was always kind of being authentic, and I enjoy recruitment, and the industry's given me a hell of a lot, mate. So I guess probably enjoy being a bit of a focal point for the industry. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. Have you got any tips for someone coming in early in their career? You talked about evolving your brand and building your name. Any tips that you'd give them to get to maybe where you've got to? Yeah,
I think first and foremost, it's a necessity these days. Mm-hmm. Your clients, your potential candidates, everyone's got the same access to technology that you have. The one thing that you own is you be yourself. Everyone else is kind of taken, right? And I think so many people have that tall poppy syndrome. They're frightened of putting themselves out there because what if one person doesn't like it? To be honest, when you get that negative criticism, you've nailed it, mate.
Okay.
Right? Because if you just want to be seen and it's your mates who are giving you the high fives and stuff, you're not having an impact. So be seen, be knowledgeable, and have a point of view. This is where, so I think just go for it. I mean, I shared this story so many times. January 24, I'm at home, I'm consulting. No one pays you in January, obviously. And I was sat at home, 3 kids watching the television, no money coming in. What can I do? And a mate of mine, a guy called Mario Beckish, who's a ex Special Forces military, said to me, "Stephen, you can build your brand." I was like, "What can I do? How long have you been in recruitment?" 20 videos for 20 years in recruitment. 20 days did videos. 100,000 people watched the videos January last year.
Right.
People must have been bored, man, but I was bored after doing the first 2 or 3, right? Yep. And he said to me, "You will get bored. Keep going. And I did. And I became known then as the kind of the video guy, whether that's rightly or wrong, just a middle-aged bloke just having a go. And the amount of people that said to me, "Love it, keep going, do this." And there was a couple who said, "I hate that." And I pulled one guy on it and I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What I mean is I couldn't do it."
Yeah.
So just
talked about that tall poppy syndrome, right? Got to get yourself out there.
You do.
But Tolen & Co, you got, is it your own sales methodology? Is that what you kind of built? So what does the 5 before call framework kind of look like in practice?
If you said, so when I came to Australia in 2009, BBT, 60 calls a day we had to make, right? And I just look back and I think if someone made 10 a week now, you'd probably be quite happy with that, right? That's a decent return on kind of effort. You have to do so much more work now before the call, right? Like as in before actually. So everyone says the cold call's dead, it's been demonized. Rubbish. I've never built a relationship without picking up a phone, right? Mm-hmm. If you can show me any tech that's kind of done that, I'll be amazed. What I find today is I make less calls than I did 15, 20 years ago, but the most common bit of feedback I get is I know you, right? I've seen you, I've seen your videos, I've seen a podcast, I've seen this. So the 5 before the call is basically number 1, you have to have a personal brand, right? So people know the 3 W's, who, what, why, who are you, what's your service, and why would you be of interest to me, right? Really simple stuff. Number 2, LinkedIn is key, right? It's changed so much even in the last kind of 6 to 12 months. So you have to be able to master this. It's not good enough just sharing a company page, posting a job. People want to get to know, who are you? Do our values align, right? Are you talking about things? Do I think I'd want a relationship with you? Mm-hmm. So these are the things that you really need to kind of master. Number 3 is kind of AI and automation, right? So utilizing these kind of tools that will allow you to have more human connection, right? It's, if you think back to go back to kind of 22. I remember the first wave of kind of automation coming out. Give me the keys to your LinkedIn. Just let us drive. Nightmare. And I hated it, right? And you get these spammy essays and I hated it. It's come a long way since then. And it's not about 5,000 outreach and get, 0.005% hit rates. So utilizing technology to allow you to have conversations is key. Using video is essential, right? Whether you like it or not, everyone hates video because they think, I'm going to look an absolute clown. I can tell you now, I'll look the clown, and then you just get more comfortable and people give you constructive feedback. 20 times more engaging than a written post, right? So it's up to you. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. LinkedIn, 99% of people don't produce content. They critique yours. I love that. There's your opportunity, right? So do it. And then the final two, networking. Human interaction is key. Go to events. Go and be an SME in your market. I do all this typically before I pick up the call to you. So if one of those touch points has gone, I know exactly who you are. So that's the methodology.
I love it. So someone who's never done any of those things before, like what would you say, start somewhere? What would be the first thing you think they should start doing?
Three W is kind of, who are you? Like, who's your kind of target market? What is it you're offering? And just think about it. Why are you the expert in your space? Why are you someone that they should have a conversation with? If you're a client, what's the value there, right? Versus the, 10,000 other recruiters who are, let's say, working in IT or whatever it is. If you're a candidate, why are you the best person that's going to find them a job? Like, they don't care about, all these other things, or whether you wear nice suits or what you're into. That's fantastic. They really care about whether you're going to have a job. Let's be brutally honest. So I think just nail that and get the fundamentals. Be committed and consistent, like do all that upfront work. It's also, you've got to set yourself up for, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? We talk about boxing or whatever, you do a 12-week kind of camp. You're not going to see results in day one. You'll definitely see results after 12 weeks. You'll certainly see results after 6 months. And it's that consistency that gets people through. Most people, the first thing that's not working, it's rubbish. That didn't work. I don't believe in that. So mate, just manage expectations, be open to feedback, but stay committed.
And with AI everywhere nowadays, is there any AI that you would recommend using to kind of for people who aren't doing this at the moment to enhance their prospecting without losing kind of the human element?
The thing is, and I'll talk about this in a sec, because I've been on the receiving end of a few pitches myself and actually given them constructive feedback.
Okay.
Most buyers or people are not saying, I need AI in my business, right? I think first thing to do is go, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? Okay.
Yep.
From the process that you've got, let's say it's outreach. Do you have an efficient process? Can you accelerate that? Can you make it more efficient? If so, and if AI can help, fantastic. But map out the process and go, where are the touch points? Where's the human element? Don't just expect it to go from opening a relationship to winning business for you. That's where a lot of people kind of get it wrong. So there's many tools. Synaptico is another one that I really like, which is the AI-based kind of email outreach purely for candidates. And I love this because of the concept behind it. It's built by recruiters, and what the interaction does, it says, it emails Blake, whatever, and the prompt is to get you on the phone, right? Hey, I've got a role for you. Natural reaction, what's it paying? Let's have a chat. That is how I look at it and go, that's really clever. And if you're getting to speak to more people, that is a win, right? So I think work out the problem you need to solve. Don't expect it to do the end-to-end kind of for you. And also just work out, is the investment in it, et cetera, worth the outcome?
All right. So just to kind of wrap up the kind of BD and prospecting, if you were to give one bit of advice, and you've come from talking about doing 60 cold calls a day, using AI, there's a lot in the middle. What would be the one thing that you think someone should change just to improve their output, the number of jobs they're picking up? What kind of tips would you give?
Mate, just do the groundwork, man. Doing your research. Like, again, this is, you're really doing the fundamentals really well. Like, that is the key thing. I think be a specialist. Again, know your market, and also understand that the person on the other end of your phone does not want to speak to a salesperson in that niche. They want to speak to someone that lives, breathes, and dies by that niche, right? Have insights. You've got to do the extra groundwork, you know what I mean? So I think that's the thing I'd say, which is really be a true specialist and get what is the gift that you're giving, the insight that you're kind of sharing. So, that's the thing I'd kind of work on.
That's good. We're hearing that a lot, aren't we? Just insights, really deep diving into a niche. That seems to be, the secret sauce if you're going to, do well in your BD.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of topics that always get brought up. And the first is prospecting, how to get in front of new clients. Yep. The second, and this is probably a good segue into like the discovery process, is how to have a good discovery call with someone where you can get engagement with the client, you can sell your value, you can put forward your USP, and then get more commitment from the client. So from a discovery standpoint, you've done your AI, you've called them, you've introduced yourself, you've built a little bit of that rapport.
Yep.
How do you then transition from I'm prospecting to build a relationship to there's an opportunity here and I want to go through my discovery process to see if we're a good fit?
Go back to the first point, right? If you've done the research and you know that this person is a good fit, I hear this often, maybe there's not any kind of work, that maybe there's no jobs. That's on you to do the research, right? Why would you call someone if you've done the research and you see that they're laying people off or what have you, right? So I think that's the kind of the fundamental. What I would say is, again, go back to points I made there before, knowing your market, lead with insight, right? So again, hey, thanks for connecting. If I jump on a call now, right, I'm not looking to go straight to kill. So again, I built a 5-step kind of sales methodology. Number 1 is attract attention, and number 5 is close. And there's steps on the way in between that mirror human and human behavior. So engagement, rapport, trust, open and opportunity. Most people just want to go from 1 to 5. Hey Blake, how you doing? Yeah, cool. You got any jobs? Boomf, right? You've heard this a million times. Imagine you've got on a call and said, hey, Blake, Steve, nice to meet you. Mate, look, I work in the space. I work in XYZ kind of sector. These are some of the trends that I'm seeing from candidates, right? They're moving over to ABC. I thought it'd be worth sharing some of these stories because looking at your website, reading the news that you've got, it seems as though you maybe have some of those challenges. Are you okay with me to share something? So if you lead with kind of insight, and most people try and go for the close instead of having a conversation. So that's the way that I think I'd approach it.
So let's say you've done that. They've gone, yeah, I am having those challenges. And you go to the point where there is an opportunity and you unearth an opportunity. Do you have a framework or a structure that you take when you are sitting in front of a client, maybe taking a job brief over the phone, to be able to build more rapport, get more credibility, like position yourself with more value? Like what does it look like specifically when you're in front of a client and you're taking a brief and doing a discovery? Yeah,
mate, so it's proof points, mate, right? You know what I mean? So again, if you go back to the point that I said there before, this is where I believe a lot of the upfront work is key. So if you talk about the 5 steps that I said before, 90% of the time now, the people that I will approach, we've had some touch points, right? It's 1 to 8 touch points to make a sale. So whether that's on LinkedIn, whether it's on an event, etc. The more that you kind of do this and you don't go for the kill, we just met in whatever in events, you pick up over time, you see who's actually following your content, right? You narrow it down and you go, they fit into my kind of prospect list of clients, right? So again, that kind of upfront engagement is key. When you're in front of the client, right, again, what are you looking for? You're looking for confidence, trust, right? Is the rapport here? We build a relationship. Again, there's so many recruiters that are actually out there. What makes you different, right? So it's proof points, which is the role that you've actually kind of got. This is my track record in this particular space, right? These are some of the give insight. Also, this is what you want to be aware of. The market is challenging. Rates are going up, but we're seeing that people are moving in this particular sector. So I think just keep leaving with insights, leading with knowledge as opposed to selling, right? So mate, that's kind of the process that I kind of go through. So continually giving proof points, bits of feedback, and just examples of where you've kind of done the job better than your competition.
So what would be like the number one mistake that you see recruiters making going through that process? I know you just said stop selling, lean in with insights, this type of thing. But if there was one bit of advice for a recruiter who is still finding their feet with client meetings, trying to do a discovery, trying to take a good job brief, this type of thing, what's like the one thing that they need to be avoiding to not ruin that rapport or that credibility?
Patience is a superpower, right? And it might sound cheesy, but again, you're looking to build relationships with people. I think too many recruiters, and I've been guilty of this myself, it still happens to me now, you're desperate to kind of kill it, close it, whatever, and in the first touch point. Look for clients that are not just going to give you one opportunity. That client, if they're spending time with you, they want to build a relationship, right? They don't want to go... Recruiters, we have this belief that they want to work with everyone in the market. They don't, right? They're busy people. They want to know with someone that goes, you get me, I get you know what we're looking for. So go with an open mind. Don't sell, really understand the brief. And if you can help them, fantastic. If not, give that feedback. Time and time again, I see people, they've got a job, they don't think it's right, or they will just flick these candidates over and stuff. It really devalues and degrades our industry. And, at the end of the day, they're just people. But I think that's the thing. Honesty, trust, play the long game is the feedback that I've heard. And recently, I actually spoke at an event, and someone said to me, the first question they said is, what do you see in the recruitment market right now? What should recruiters be doing? I said, I can talk about it for hours. I said, but how about if I went to 3 clients of mine over the years and asked them, which I did, 3 senior people, 2 procurement leads and a head of TA. Ironically, all 3 are looking for work. Purely coincidental, but this is the market that we're in. They did it within 24 hours. One took 5 minutes, one hour. And honestly, I was truly humbled by this. I've known them for years. One guy, 3 years, Marie, 7, Dennis, 12. They're not transactional, right? They're people. And I'll help them if I can. I invite them to events and stuff like that. And they came back and they helped me. So that's probably one really good example of where I can give. I play the long game and I put so much effort into the relationship. So people can see it, mate, when you're being genuine. They can see it when you're being authentic. So that's been probably the biggest key to success that I could probably share with people.
What about like uncovering someone's pain points?
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, and you've kind of put this forward just now around leading with value, being genuine, this type of thing. A lot of the time, clients don't really know with clarity on what they truly need or want. There's obviously a pain point there.
Yep.
It's, I just need to hire this person. And a good recruiter sometimes looks beyond just the JD and says, like, what are the pain points that you're experiencing? Do you have an approach, a structured line of questioning that uncovers pain points that otherwise the client probably doesn't know about yet?
Yeah, and I got to say, at times I'm probably the least structured person ever. If you speak to any of my former colleagues, it's up there, and that's what I built. Like when I talk about the methodologies, to take something that you've done over 20 years and get it into 4 or 5 points is really hard. It's always, but to make something so simplistic. So when I talk about the first thing I do is try and engage, get someone's attention, right? That's what everyone is trying to do today. So that's your currency. The second thing you're trying to do is increase engagement. 3 is build rapport and trust. To your point, the 4th is co-create an opportunity. And I talk about this, right? And whether it's just picking up one job, but I've really drilled down on that from years of strategic kind of selling where it was, an 18-month to 24-month sales cycle, right? Where touch points, you go backwards and go forwards. That's the same process in principle. So we're sitting down, you've got a job brief, exactly that. But what is the real pain? You know what I mean? So you're looking for a salesperson or whatever it is. Why did the last person not kind of, is it the culture? Is it the market? Is it you're not paying enough? Is it, that you're not advanced, whatever it kind of is. And I think if you're bringing that area of expertise and you're a true subject matter expert, people can see that. And that's what they're paying for. Again, I think we get sucked into this. They just want a kind of a bum on a seat. It's not, really think about this. What is the impact, the positive impact that it can have on the business? So I kind of go back to that kind of first point and go, have I got the attention? Have we built the rapport? And are we really on kind of the same page? And then even kind of going before that, if you know what the brief is or the job spec, you should be ahead of the game, right? Here's 2 or 3 candidates or whatever that I think would potentially make a massive difference. And even from a candidate side, one of the things that I like to do is give me examples of where you've really made a difference. Everyone can read a CV, but particularly if it's in sales, what is your process? How have you done the background? How do you engage with people? So that's what it's a 2-way street. You're trying to build, obviously, you try and deliver to your client and also represent your candidates in the right way. So that's where I think go from that attention, engagement, rapport, and trust through to the opportunity piece.
Yeah, gotcha. So have you got like an example of like a well-run discovery meeting?
Yeah,
that's worked really well for you in the past? Either it doesn't even need to be so much in the traditional job brief spec sense. It could be in a different lens, but if we get the flavor of what your general approach is for a good discovery, that would be really helpful. Yeah,
mate. So I think there's 2 things. If I look at opportunities where I've done, particularly more in the kind of strategic space, the easiest clients, everyone's looking for new business, right? And if you've just done one opportunity with whoever, they've just bought from you. You've built a rapport. You've gone through the process. Cross-selling, I think, is one of the biggest veins of our industry. Like, we don't do it very well, right? We just go so kind of self-focused. So looking at that is an approach I always do. You just bought from us. Are there any other challenges that we can kind of uncover? So it's really asking lots and lots of questions, knowing what's in your arsenal, right? So, if you're working with them on IT, working with them in different kind of sectors, that's key. And it's such a missed opportunity. Is there anyone else you can introduce us to, right? So really kind of the fundamentals. If I think about opportunities that we had before with clients, we've won a piece of work on contingent. We've gone in, really simple. Can we help you with your permanent side of the business? We're dealing with this part of the business over here, procurement, right? So just really building the blocks and having a kind of a map and a bit of an account plan really kind of helps if you're looking on the strategic stuff. I was actually going to flip it round, and I hope this makes sense, a bit of a different kind of slant on it, but I got a lot of discovery calls to me, and I had one recently from an AI solution provider, right? They led with, it's AI and here's the price point. And I went, that's irrelevant to me. Like, tell me what is it you exactly, okay. The problem that we solve is we can help you shortlist candidates quicker than, you can do manually with XYZ manpower. Brilliant. That's the problem that you're trying to solve. It doesn't matter what your cost is. I wasn't asking for AI, etc. And if you'd actually led with that, the conversation probably would have gone a lot more kind of smoother. So I think people often approach it in the wrong way. And I think bring it right back to what is the problem that you're kind of trying to solve. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a different take on it as well.
We need to have the conversation, right, to get the potential prospect to say, this is my problem, first and foremost. So there needs to be a framing of the conversation to get you there.
Yeah, I was about to say that actually ties in well with the value piece.
Yeah.
Because I guess another way of thinking of that is like, what is the value that we're presenting here, and how to present that. So, Ed, you've got some...
So jumping into the value. So obviously the pitch or the value proposition, we've gone through how you prospect, how you pick up your jobs in effect. You start the discovery meetings. At some point, you've got to talk about what you do and how you do it. So how do you think recruiters should communicate the value to new clients who maybe they haven't worked with before, like the first time?
Yeah, so again, I've said this, I probably sound like a broken record. The research piece is key, right? I would much rather quality over quantity. People, and I see this time and time again, I've made 20 calls today and they were crap calls, right? And you go, and there's probably a reason for that. Just focus on 5. Control what you can control. Why would you speak to this person? What are you going to offer? So I know, and go and give, don't take. And what I mean by that is, you're delivering insight. I'm going to give you some information, or you're going to leave the call thinking, geez, that person made a real impact on me. So as I mentioned before, and I'll give you an example. If we just kind of picked up now, BD coaching, consultant services, whatever it is. Ed, nice to meet you. Mate, Steve Tolen, we connected on LinkedIn. The reason I'm reaching out to you today, mate, is a recent report that came out from JobAdder. 5,000 recruitment founders were surveyed. 95% unhappy with the BD strategy. It's unbelievable. 95% unhappy. I'd love to share some examples, mate, of what I've been doing, working the space for 20 years. I'd love to have a conversation with you, share some. Maybe you've got that challenge. Bang. Mm-hmm. You've led with a statement, with intent, with authority. People know typically what you kind of do. Don't pick up the phone and go, hello, have you got a minute? Is this a good time? I just sit back and I just go, you've lost it, mate. So, really getting in there. Those first kind of 5 to 8 seconds are absolutely key. You go in there, your energy is key, right? So if you're going to go in there and you're shaking and you're this, that, and you finish before you even get in. Mm. But I'll tell you now, mate, like I actually am a bit of a nutter. I quite enjoy the cold call if I know that I've done the upfront work. Mm-hmm. And I know that I've got a reason to call, and I know that I'm coming from a place of, you need to hear this. So, mate, that's probably my take on it. And
I've been guilty of this, being nervous when you're quite new into recruitment about speaking to more senior people. You speak to a hiring manager, you speak to a CEO, they're very different. Yeah. Speak to someone in recruitment, HR. Yeah. What would be your take on how to coach recruiters to speaking to a business owner versus talent versus hiring manager?
Yeah, and different pain points, mate, right? Like, so I see this time and time again, and mate, I'm guilty of it. Like I'm not the messiah. Like I make mistakes and I don't get it right all the time, but with more experience, your hit rate and your success rate becomes better. Like it generally does. And so if I think about let's say a recruiter, an internal recruiter, they've got a budget, they've got targets, right? Their role is to fill that job themselves. So there's a cost associated to it, right? So, that's the challenge that you're often coming up against, right? And people just don't really kind of understand that. It's hard. So on that level, focus on kind of just building the relationships, and you want to be there when the opportunity does come up. And again, focus on why you're the best choice. And it's not the technology. It keeps that. If you focus on the relationship skills, and like I'm really good to do business with, we might chat 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. You watch how it kind of works for you. If you're thinking about someone who's a bit more strategic, then in a talent leader kind of role, it's probably more around strategy, insights, I believe, right? In terms of, okay, what is the market doing? You speak to so many different clients. We're based in one. Are we off the money? Like, are we? How's our brand doing? These kind of things, right? So you can go to a more strategic level. What I find with a business owner is, mate, they really want. it's about the dollars, right? Like the profitability. Am I getting the right people? So the conversations kind of differ. Do you align with our strategy? So, mate, that would be how I'd kind of cascade it.
Business outcomes with
business outcomes.
Yeah.
Mate. Like, so, if they're looking for a particular kind of senior role, they haven't got time to kind of waste. And, every dollar is kind of valuable, but they're probably more interested in getting the right person, right, that really kind of aligns with them. So, again, that kind of research piece is key.
Yeah. What about hiring manager? You're taught in recruitment to avoid talent, avoid HR. Go to the hiring manager. Should they be adjusting it slightly for a hiring manager? Because they probably are less interested in business outcomes, if I'm honest, versus a business owner or a C-level. Is there an angle you take particularly with hiring managers?
Yeah, I think so. And we've had, even just look at the last kind of 12 months, they're kind of pinpoint. Hiring managers, if they've got projects spent, they need projects delivered on time, right? So, it's always that kind of that chicken and egg, right? People say you can't go to line and things, but you got to build relationships somewhere, and you still want them. What I've seen is they can have a lot of influence, even if I think about, and I won't mention departments, but, in public sector, people say, there's no spend, there's this, that, and the other. Okay, cool. But can we go and meet with these people? Yeah, we can, right? And half of them don't know the process themselves. They go, look, I get a couple of roles every now and again. So what do I need to do? I can refer you, or I can mention, yeah, you can. Guess what? It happened recently where they said, so I've just told the recruiters that they need to, include you on the distribution list, right? So if you're not speaking to hiring managers, I think going back to that point I meant there before is you don't want to, if there's ways in which you don't want to get blocked, right? And you don't want to get someone come down and go, you guys are kind of finished, right? So don't do anything that's kind of dodgy, but, build the relationship, ask open conversations and let them know that, if there's an opportunity, here's what we supply. Often hiring managers don't know. If there's ever anything we can assist you with, but invite them to events.
Okay.
Do various things, go with insight, not necessarily looking to kind of pick up that job. And I find that kind of tipping point is, I say, 1 to 8 touch points to make a sale. Typically by the time people get to the 3rd or 4th interaction,
they're close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your view on storytelling? Not how was your weekend, this is what I got up to, but taking them on a journey. And I got trained to, people remember stories and how you make them feel versus stats and figures. Yeah. So what's your view on storytelling when it comes to the pitch?
Mate, it's the art, mate. Like if you nail it, I mean, everyone loves a good story, right? I'm surprised I haven't put you guys to sleep already, the amounts I've just told the last 20 minutes. But if you think about someone that's on the receiving end, right? Whatever you're talking about, problems you're painting a picture of, as I just said there before, here's a bit of research that we saw, here's the pain point, right? That could be you. If you've nailed it and done your research, that they're picturing themselves in that position and hopefully thinking, yeah, if you bang on, there's a chance you could help me. So storytelling is paramount, mate. And I think often people get caught up in going sound like robots or a script and stuff like that. The biggest bit of, and it really humbles me and I'm grateful, is the biggest positive kind of feedback is you're authentic. Like, people know that I'm not using AI because of my spelling mistakes or the fact that I mess up on a lot of stuff, right? But it's me. When you're doing videos and you stood there and stuff like that, the guy's stolen money's in the park again or whatever. But so yes, storytelling, mate. And that's what I preach, right? So it's absolutely paramount, mate. So yeah, really kind of focus on that.
I love it. In my previous company, we actually had the one of these story writers from Pixar came and trained us, or did a keynote and told us how to position a pitch along like a story, and he'd written The Incredibles and all those kind of cool things. It was like really, really powerful if you get it right. Side note, what's your advice on somebody who struggles speaking to more senior prospects, clients? And again, we've probably all been there at some stage in our career where you think the more senior they are, that they're not going to want to hear from me.
Yes, it's and even now, when I speak to people, senior people, like I still get that kind of little bit of nervousness, you know what I mean? Because they're senior people, they've got the war story, they've got the stripes, they've earned it, but they're busy people, right? So, but that last word, they're just people.
Yeah.
So, we kind of said there before, if you are someone that has something that is worth their time and some insights, then go there with a position of authority. Like at the moment, I'm actually working on a project. I'm sharing it. Someone that's potentially looking to buy a recruitment business, right? So you're speaking to senior people. the way that you engage and stuff. And it's it's quite a sensitive kind of topic. But so you have to do your research, right? You do multiple calls. People are busy. Who are you? Doing the research, but being respectful of their time. But again, they check you out on LinkedIn. They check you out on whatever. If you're approaching me now, and again, it does happen. I get lots of people pitching to me. I respect the ones that have come to me with something that shows that they've done effort. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, and I reciprocate, is someone reaches out and goes, mate, I'd look at your website. I checked out your LinkedIn. Right? I think I could really help you with lead flow or whatever. Here's a couple of cheeky recommendations. It wouldn't take you too long. Can I get 5 or 10 minutes of your time? And here's a couple of proof points of where people have gone on. That would get my attention. And it'd probably make me say, do you know what, mate? I'll give you 20 minutes, half an hour of my time, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to buy. And I think so many people, the mindset is they think it's that they're not expecting a success. And so they almost talk themselves out of it. The mind can be very convincing, right? This isn't going to happen. This person's got a senior title. If you do the groundwork and you've got something to say and you go in there with confident and with the right approach, you might get a result, you might not. But if you don't know, you don't try, you'll never know.
Senior people have less time, but they're probably more receptive to value, I would always say.
100%.
Yeah.
Get to the point straight away, right?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Confessions of a Recruiter, brought to you by X-Recruiter. X-Recruiter helps ambitious recruiters like you start, run, and grow their own recruitment agency. Whether you're in blue collar, white collar, permanent, or temporary recruitment, we help recruiters go from where they are today to where they want to be. So if you want to start your own agency, reach out and we'd love to help.
And final question from me around value and recruitment pitch. Like, what is the most common mistake or pitfall you've seen in recruiters when they're pitching, and what's a tip you'd give them to help overcome that?
Okay, so the most common thing in pitching is just going, and I say I can only revert it back to my own process. You want to go from 0 to 100 in one false swoop, right? We've literally just connected. Here's my full pitch, full sale, and they're like, mate, I just connected at the start of a relationship. So I think really take the time, build the relationships, build engagement, let them know you, and you'd be surprised. I had a conversation with someone yesterday that we're talking about potentially working together. I think it's probably the third or fourth call. It's a million miles away from that first call, right? And you can just see the body language is different, right? I know you, I know all your quirks, da-da-da-da-da. And people think that's a waste of time. It's not. It's far from it. So if you're not willing to invest in that, you can't expect miracles to happen. The other thing I'll say, and again, I always try and give a different lens on this, is the pitfalls are, if you speak to a client, a prospect, and they say, I'm really happy with ABC Recruiter, don't jump in and diss the competition. Yeah. Right? I hate it. It is the biggest stain on our industry, and it happens time and time again, right? We've dealt with X. Oh yeah, but they're having a tough time. They're having this, and I just sit back and I go, not only do you look a complete idiot, you paint a really bad picture of our industry. So always play to your strengths. In that example, we're dealing with whoever. Awesome, well, they're doing well. That's great to hear, because I tell you what, standards in our industry, we've seen it's a really high turnover kind of industry. What are they doing well? Think about it, right? And just think what that does for your kind of brand, reputation, etc. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people that I've known for years that have never bought a thing off me. That doesn't mean I'm a bad sales guy or whatever, but they're in your kind of network, etc. So always kind of play the long game. So. Yeah, just a different view.
It's funny that you say that, because it's a natural instinct if you're competing against someone to try and knock them down a peg and elevate yourself.
Yeah.
But it's actually really counterintuitive.
100%.
When you actually start praising the other people and telling them how good they are, it actually builds much more trust and rapport to make someone want to work with you than otherwise. Yeah. So I used to do that all the time, where I'd be up against another recruiter. I go, oh man, they're actually really good, aren't they? Yeah, they must be smashing it. They're doing a really good job. And they're like, well, not actually. No, not actually. And I'm like, I've heard really good things about them. That's a surprise. Anyway, look, this is how we do it. And then you just get them talking about it themselves, because, more chances than not, they're on the phone to you as a recruiter because a need's not being met somewhere along the line. Yeah. And so if you lead them down the path of being nice, happy, grateful,
Yeah.
praising other people, and then you get them talking about, oh, they're actually not delivering right now, but they are usually good. They kind of sell themselves into the reason why they should talk to you in the first place. So you don't need to be like, oh yeah, are they delivering though?
Yeah.
Are they actually giving you the candidates?
delivering.
You can just kind of like,
I can picture it now. Sorry, you hear it so often, like people are just
for sure.
Yeah.
So we've got two more topics that we want to talk on that I think are really important. One that I've always lacked in, which is client relationship management.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why. And then the second is around objection handling.
Yep.
So these two things are really, really important for a successful recruiter. So client and candidate relationship management, I'll be the first person to put my hand up, and I never had any sort of system, any sort of framework, any sort of idea on how to maintain relationships after you make the placement. When I first got into recruitment, it was pure new business. The moment you make the placement, you move on, you find a new company to make a placement with, and there was actually no thought on how can we retain and grow the relationships that we've already placed. And it wasn't until I started my own business where I thought, why don't I just go back to the 30 companies that I placed with last year and just see if they've got any more roles? It seems like such an easy, low-lying fruit. And it didn't occur to me until years into my recruitment journey. So I give you that context because I'm sure there's more people out there in a similar boat that doesn't think about relationship management as seriously as they think about BD and new clients, because both of them are equally important, right? So do you have a framework or a secret sauce or a way that you think about and approach building out your relationships with your clients?
My career has been built on client relationships. I just gave you a couple of examples there. People that we dealt with or had one business with 10 years ago, still friends. So the hardest thing, so when I say a framework, yes, I have frameworks. So a lot of it is, being completely honest, is just experience in my head. What I do is I make sure that I continually speak to people. We're always in contact.
What do you speak about?
Mate, it could just be as simple as how are you? You know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
No agenda?
No agenda, right? Like, so literally going in, they might be having a bad day. Maybe they're worried about their job, various things. But I'll give you a very real example. A couple of years ago, I've done in-person events for 10 plus years. It's what I became known for. And I get this question all the time. My events, typically the audience has evolved over the past 2 to 3 years. It's probably 90% recruiters, competitors, right? And yes, you get HR people and procurement people, but what they want is to come and network. So what I do is I physically have the ability and that conduit for people to come in. We have professional speakers from HR, from recruitment, and I always have sports, athletes, people. Because the two things I talk about in recruitment is mindset and mastery. If you don't have the right mindset, don't worry. And if you're not upskilling, forget it. That is a way to answer your question that I make sure I'm in contact with people. Every quarter I get about 100 and odd people. It's a lot of work. And people say, well, how do you get so many repeat kind of attendees? Do you know why? Because it's not about me. I let them network. And they speak to their competitors. They do whatever. That's probably a really physical and real example of how my framework is. Every quarter, I will do that, and I'll bring people in that I'm speaking to, because that allows them to build more trust. And again, I'm not selling, but after the event, you'll pick up with someone, right? So, mate, that's probably a very visible kind of framework or strategy. That I've used.
Okay, so you're talking events. Invite everyone along. Keep in touch with them, network with them. Like, you've invited me to a bunch of events.
Yeah, have you been?
No.
Glad I brought it up.
I'm like, oh, geez. Steve's inviting me to a bloody event again. No, but it's really good. And it's actually, it's admirable because what you're saying, I've lived and breathed on the receiving end to go, you actually do send a video in the park. Yeah, you do invite me to events. And so it's...
But mate, it answers the point there that you just said, and it's classic. So we talk about putting yourself out there. It's the lurkers, right? It's not the people that are necessarily your high five club, as I kind of say. But when you talk about, you've just really nailed a great point, is people see you and they feel as though they're connected. The most common bit of feedback that I get time and time again is, love love the videos, right? I see what you're up to. You know, that was good. You know, like a point about branding or the recruitment market or whatever. So you're in contact with people, even though you might not feel like directly like you're picking up the phone. And they say the events is kind of the big kind of finale where you do it and you kind of bring it together. But they all come because, again, they've followed the content. There's value there, right? Like, and again, it's that kind of networking piece. So yeah, mate, it was quite a deliberate kind of strategy, but all about adding sharing value.
Yeah, gotcha. What about a recruiter? Generally, a recruiter is not going to be able to put on events. Yep. What should a recruiter be thinking to expand existing relationships, to squeeze more out of them, yep, to grow deeper, wider? What's kind of the 3 steps that they should be thinking about with existing clients, yep, that they can get more value from them? Yeah,
and it goes back to your early point, and again, the strategic sales kind of piece we talked about, I think it's creeping more in now into the everyday, the transactional. And it was, again, a stick people used to beat me with. You sell big MSPs or whatever. And I go, yep, it's a fair point. When times get harder, sit down and map out who are the prospects, who's our current client list. I hear this time and time again. Someone speaking to yesterday, we've probably got 300 clients where we do one placement with, whatever. That would be a really good starting point. So who's in your existing kind of client portfolio? Is there repeat business? When did you last see them? Like, when did you last get out and see them? Have they moved on, right? You know, do you understand, again, the external kind of factors that are taking place, right? So, again, even simple things, I just say, get out and actually meet with them, right? So, and take along just some market insights. You know, your one clients, you're dealing with X number of clients, right? So take along some insight and go, I just want you to know this is what we're seeing in the market, right? What's happening with the business? So assess current kind of client portfolio, get out there and offer value, and kind of meet face to face. There'd be three things I'd say.
I like that. You said something earlier in the podcast. You were talking about co-creating an opportunity.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So the modus operandi is, have you got a job? Can I fill a job? Right. You know. So if you think about the way times are kind of changing, going back to the point that you made before, Ed. Right. You know, a business's most valuable commodity is its people, right? So are you just that person that's looking for one job, 15%, 20%, whatever, I'll fill it, I'll move on, gone, bang, and don't come to me, you know, when things kind of go wrong. If you're sitting there and you've got relationships and you're a true expert, right? It could be in the technology space or whatever, or public sector, and you're sitting down, you're building rapport, you want to be seen, or the utopia is to be seen as someone that is so immersed in that market. You got this one opportunity. What's the next 5, 6, 7, 8 that's kind of coming along, right? Listen, how are you going to facilitate them? They're not going to, they might say, I think I can fill 60, 70%, but there's 2 or 3 that are probably going to come out sweet. How could we work together on that, right? It's a small market, right? That we're working in this particular niche. I'll probably have access to a lot of candidates that you might be speaking to, but I'm so invested in this space. Again, let me tell you about the little external things that I do to make sure I'm getting into these kind of candidates. So it's proving that you go the extra mile, and that when someone comes to you with that opportunity, you're the natural choice, right? It's not about the rate or whatever. It's just a case of you would probably make 5 calls and get me 5 great candidates. So proof points, again, engagement, building trust, kind of credibility. So how do you say the word co-create an opportunity with a prospect? So, yeah, I mean, it depends. I think it's more the behavior. Like, if you've put the upfront work in, what you want to get to is that kind of place where you're building something together. So again, I try and take this strategic sales kind of approach and sit down, because I think recruiters have to work harder and harder now to win an opportunity. That's a fact. So you have to go in and consult. And again, that kind of give before you take, that's the kind of key thing. So again, if we're sitting down, you said it there before, the tipping points I find is about 3 to 4 kind of conversations where you're giving information, you're showing that you're an expert in that market, and you're basically saying, this is how I can help you. At some point, they're probably going to go, okay, I think you're the kind of value partner that we would look for. And then when an opportunity kind of comes, you can ask the question, when that opportunity is there, would I be someone that you would trust to give that opportunity to?
I like that. And so how would you typically train a rookie recruiter to be more proactive with the account management side of things, the relationship building side of things, without coming across desperate, pushy, a little too much?
Yeah, mate, I just trained couple of people in the last role there at Pinpoint. And I think if I give you kind of my take on this, right now you've got experienced recruiters, 10 plus years, that if they're not willing to change, they're very vulnerable. And I see a lot of businesses shifting the model and bringing in grads because they will do exactly what you tell them to do. And I think that's a really good kind of approach, right? So people to kind of come in. So first thing is that they want to do things that are going to make them successful, right? So they're going to watch what you do. So I think too many recruitment founders these days have got used to playing, sitting in the back seat. No, you're up front, mate. You're driving. Show them how it's done. Too many people, I've been doing it 10, 20 years. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm too removed from a desk. Mate, you should be the one that's leading with your BD. They will follow you to the edge of the cliff and off. So show them how it's done, right? Like that is the best bit of leadership advice that I respond really, really well to that myself. These are the outcomes, this is how you make a quality call. I want you to put this list together. I want you to reach out to X number of people. Come out with me and I'll show you how I meet with people. Watch how I engage. It was a huge compliment when the grads we took out at Pinpoint, Marcus, and he just said, when you go to a meeting, you can see the mutual respect, and because people go, what are you saying? And you're just having conversations, right? So they understand that it's about that rapport, trust, So I think being authentic, but it's on you, mate. Like if you've been in this 10, 20 years, don't expect someone to come in on day one and be an expert, right? Like, you've got to show them the ropes. And if they fail after 3 to 6 months, you know what? That's also on you.
Yeah, totally. So before we move on to objection handling, you mentioned something a little bit earlier around asking for more opportunities.
Yeah.
Is there something you say specifically? Is there a strategy? How do you coach a rookie recruiter in exploring and getting more opportunities than just the one job on that might be in front of them? Yeah,
mate. So again, to go back to that kind of that relationship piece, right? And I think look for clients that are first and foremost, if you know that there's more opportunity there, let's just say you filled that opportunity, keep in touch with the hiring manager, keep in touch with the candidate, right? Make sure, ask open questions, keep delivering value, so it's really going the extra mile and kind of being proactive. But I think that once people have done the deal, they move on. And the amount of waste, and you've got clients that will be there. So it's just really asking the question, but going the extra mile and being creative with that, right? Well, look, we filled that opportunity. Here's some market insights that we're seeing, there's another 4 or 5 candidates with a similar skill set. I don't know if you're looking for anybody right now, but if you are, we had success on that role. Let us know. Did you also know a couple of your competitors, they're actually shrinking in that area? So we're starting to see a lot of people that, want to move, or they're actually growing in that particular area. So by just going and saying, okay, you've had success, you've got a proof points, you're clearly invested, you're proactive, but you know the market and you're giving me insight, because that hiring manager will go back into their internal business and go, do you know what? Guys over there, they're ramping up like crazy, or actually they're shedding, we're winning. You're giving people information that actually helps them. So mate, that's probably how I'd go about it.
So moving on to objection handling, and let's be honest, recruiters face objections all the time. Do you have a structure or a framework or a process you follow when it comes to handling objections?
Again, it goes back to the kind of the 5 points that I mentioned before, right? Like, so I think firstly is listen, right? So, making sure that you're reading the kind of the signals. I would always go into, so if we talk about objection handling on a call, I would always go in with an impact, the ramp, like a statement. And again, people know exactly then why you're there. Honestly, some of my calls last 20 seconds and they'll go, okay, get it. Now is not a good time, right? But it's very seldom is it, no, do one. Because they get a sense, and I followed up. It happened the other day with a very senior leader. And he said, yep, keen, send me an email. That's it. We follow up. We've had several kind of conversations. So active listening. Your objective on the call is to stimulate interest, okay? People are busy. So the first thing I would say is, the first bit of feedback I would typically get is, we don't use recruitment agencies. Oh, there isn't a need right now. Okay, cool. Yeah, thought that might be the case, because you know what? That's exactly what we're seeing in the market, right? So actually on that point, I'm going to send you just a little bit of a white paper survey that we did from 30 of our kind of top candidates at the moment that are looking for work. You might be surprised to know salaries are kind of dropped or what they're looking for. Things have changed. The people are open. Just thought it might be of interest to you. Don't necessarily, but think, almost pre-plan the negative response. And I know that might sound a bit, if you kind of expect it, but I always used to do a lot of work on what are the anticipated objections, right? And if you're one step ahead and you don't take it personally, then I think you've got a much greater chance of when you next kind of pick up the phone to them, in a 3 or 4 weeks down the line. So kind of get ahead of the game.
So not necessarily dealing with the objection there and then, but just agreeing and then aligning on a time to reconnect or something like that.
I think if you've planned out your call plan, let's just say you're doing 5, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, honestly, I think 5 PD calls right now is a really good. If someone did 25 a week and they were solid, brilliant, and they got 5 leads out of it or 5 meetings, like that's a realistic kind of metric that we're looking at right now. So if you've done those 5 and you've planned and you know what's going on, you've done a bit of work or research around the business. If your objective is simply to engage and open a conversation, if you'd come to me and you knew what was going on, I think you've got a really high chance of having a conversation, right? So the objections are typically the same. Timing's not right, this, that, and the other. And I liken it as to you're jumping off the edge of a cliff, right? And you can see people, if this call's not going well,
yeah.
But take pause, reflect, be open to feedback. What worked, what didn't work? I guarantee it's you, right? I guarantee it's you. You didn't lead with enough insight. You didn't lead with your energy just didn't get them on the hook, right? So I think pause, reflect, but don't go and then do another 20 bad ones. Just listen and go back and kind of pause and reframe.
So what about if, you're doing a call, there is a job on, we're using another recruiter, we're just going to see how they go.
Yeah.
You're in the kind of the strike zone then. You don't necessarily want to let that go because there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
How would you try and face something like that versus, okay, here's some white paper and we'll call you back in a week. Would you try and address it on the spot?
Yeah, mate. So I think, again, get ahead of the call. If there's a job that you've just seen advertised, right? If you're smart, maybe you've got a couple of candidates there that probably bang on. So again, I always say this, the recruiters, like, go, give, don't take, right? So have something there that is going to make them, show that you've done the upfront work, the potential. Hey, listen, mate, I saw that you had that role advertised. I've actually seen it advertised by XYZ kind of recruiter. They're really kind of good in that space. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask whether you're open to other agencies working it. Because again, if you look at me on LinkedIn, we're just about to connect, or we are connected, you'll probably see that's my area of speciality, right? That's all I do. I only deal with PMs or whatever. So if you are open to it, I've got a couple of candidates that worked at ABC. I'll happily kind of send them through, but if the other agency or whatever is struggling, but you know what? Either way, you're someone that wanted my network, right? And let's get a coffee either way. But just so you know, those particular roles. So again, authority, background, and if it marries up with they can see that the messaging is correct of what you're putting out there and your brand.
Yeah.
Personally, I would take that call seriously.
Yeah. You can see your style is very much, don't push too hard. Let's build that long term there. Mate, there's going to be an opportunity down the line.
Patience. Someone said it recently. I didn't think patience is a superpower.
Yeah,
it is, and it's also just reading the room, right? Again, no one in the history of sales like being sold to, right? It's not, but it's identifying problems, challenges, kind of solutions, and I think. Maybe if we went back to kind of 22, the post-COVID boom, where you'd open the window and 10 jobs had come in, that's changed now, right? So focus on I think, again, I keep saying this, the fundamentals in 20 years of being recruited haven't changed. I think we've got so used to instant gratification and the barrier for entry was quite low.
Yeah.
And your recruiters on the other end, the hiring managers, they're just being bombarded. So, mate, I don't think this is a positive, but I think the bar is so low to be great and actually just lead with quality.
Yeah.
Makes you stand out.
So last question, what's the one bit of advice you'd leave our listeners with around objection handling?
Don't take it personally, mate. Control what you can control. So, this part that you don't know unless you put yourself out there. But I honestly think, mate, so many people get into their heads that it's done or they're not going to get a result before they even try. If you're in that mode, you're toast. And so I think control what you can control. It's actually not that bad. And the other thing I'd say is the amount of people picking up a phone these days, mate, is pretty minimal. So the chance of success, if you've done the research, is probably quite high.
So we covered prospecting, discovery calls, candidate relationship, objection handling. I think we've covered a lot. So a lot of really key insights. What would the one thing, though, for a recruiter to take away from this episode? What's the one thing that they should be, the key lesson that they should take away?
Yeah, be yourself, be authentic. Like again, I said, everyone else is taken. You know, if I look at one thing I'm proud of, and I'll take it back a step. Someone said to me recently, "What's the one thing you wish you changed earlier?" And it was that I was just myself. I felt like I had to fit this corporate image, and now I just say, sold fish till the age of 27, never turned on a laptop. Explains my computer skills, by the way. When you're being yourself, you would be surprised, mate, like how people get drawn to you. If you're seen as authentic, don't just try and blend in with the background. Be yourself. Put yourself out there. You know, that's the best bit of that's honestly what I've built my kind of my persona on, just being authentically me.
Moving into the final minutes of the pod. Now, have you heard of Are You Smarter Than Ed? Have you heard of that game before?
I have.
Have you? Oh, dear. This is the fun part. We're having a shot of whiskey at 10 a.m.
No, we're not.
We've got to do it,
If I
mate.
lose every game the rest of today, I'm going to be toast by about 5 p.m.
Normally, you get a shot of hot sauce.
Okay.
Yesterday with whiskey, but it was about 5 p.m. I just wonder if 10 a.m. is the right
Not
What year did Australia host the Summer Olympics in Sydney? A.
Steve. 2000.
Correct.
That was an old one as well. I felt like I couldn't use that.
Just had to let me
Yeah, I was like, I can't ask that.
Well, you said you'd win all of them because they're
No,
all
well,
ones
you
that
know what? We
apparently
need new
Steve's
question
got
surge.
you. Which country won the FIFA World Cup in 2018? A. Brazil. B. Argentina. C. Germany. D. France.
It's France, isn't it?
Yes.
God, that's the
no.
thing.
I forgot
Hey,
there's
you're
more.
going to be drunk for our next one.
No.
This isn't recruitment related, but this will do. And this is for the win.
Is it 2-0, by the way?
It's
Isn't it?
2-0.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Which country is known as the birthplace for cricket? A. Australia. B. England.
Ed. I'm going to say England.
Yeah.
Yes. Come on, Steve.
Let's go. He's back.
Oh, man.
The character Tyler Durden.
Ed. Fight Club. 2-all. Oh, he's pulled it back. Come on.
Which Australian city is known as City of Churches?
Steve.
You can have it.
Adelaide.
Oh,
Yes, well played.
Steve's won.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
All right.
Steve. You
Well
are
played,
officially
mate.
smarter than Ed. Oh, you're pretty dumb, man.
I know. I will do the whiskey, but it's going to be a tiny bit.
Put it in your mouth, get all the oxygen out of your mouth, and just go.
Nah.
No, because as soon as you breathe in, you can taste the fumes.
All right, good.
All right. Our last guest has a question for you
Yep.
that you're going to answer.
Okay.
After you've answered it, you're going to write in the diary
Yep.
the question for our next guest.
This is from Mike Dixon, AXR. What are you doing to ensure your business will be successful without you?
Great question.
AI.
Yeah, I'm outsourcing myself. It's a bit of a, that one, because at the moment, Stolen, like the business actually kind of is me at the moment, if that makes sense. But so if I take it back to my previous role, I was there at Pinpoint. I think went in there, you're someone who's got a strong kind of personal brand, etc. That's great, but the business can't survive just being on kind of one person, right? So I think what I aim to do, and it goes back to that question, I hope I'm answering this in a way, is bringing people up to that kind of level. So when we talk about kind of bringing grads in, it can't just be as you're the leader that you are the Jedi kind of master, right? So
And there's like a big vacuum between
exactly,
you and everyone else.
yeah. So again, because in my current business, it is me. But in any business, that's what I aim to do, is to make sure that other people get up, and it's not just the Steve Tolen show, doing the BD, etc. Because one, you'll get burnt out, but number two, it's not sustainable, and you're not going to kind of grow the business. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah.
Love it.
Love it.
Thank you, Steve, for joining
Thank
us
you.
on
Thank you very
Confessions.
much.
It's been awesome.
It has. Final question. If anyone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way to do it?
2 people in the last week have met me in Kilkill Park when I'm actually taking a video. So that's not the idea.
Hang out in a local park and
On
Steve
the
will be
beach,
there.
but normally, mate, LinkedIn, I'm not too hard to kind of find. LinkedIn's probably the best place.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.